What is up, everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of the Trainer Scoop podcast, a podcast dedicated to individuals passionate about fitness to help them improve in life and lifting. Today, in episode 28, I'm coming back at you with another Instagram Q&A, and I think the one I'm going to go with today is talking about what supplements to use. Now, this is always a hot topic, so I want to preface this with a couple of things. If your sleep and if your nutrition isn't on point, you've heard that all before, you keep hearing it, you should probably pay attention to it. If those two things aren't on point, then your supplements, they might help a little bit, but your time and money and efforts could be placed elsewhere. Also, I am not a registered dietitian, I'm not a doctor, so you need to take everything I say with a grain of salt. That being said, my college Bachelor of Science did provide quite a bit of information on supplements, and that is what I'm going off of today, is actually a presentation that talks about ergogenic aids in training through the form of supplements. So ergogenic basically just means that it's benefiting your performance. So we're talking about supplements in the scope of working out and how you can improve your workouts and your recovery, I should say. So there's a wide variety of supplements out there. I'm actually seeing some facts at the beginning of this presentation that says a survey shows that 67% of Americans use a vitamin or mineral supplement. So we're just going to talk about the ones that pertain to working out because we could go down a huge rabbit hole if not. I think it's also important to note that the FDA doesn't regulate supplements, so you should probably consult with your doctor before you start to take anything that I'm about to talk about. I mean, widely, there are a few things that are considered safe just because they have a plethora of research to back up their use. But, I'm not going to be held accountable or liable for anything that happens from this information. Not that anyone would do anything, but I'm just saying, be smart with all this stuff. So, let's first talk about the biggest one, the one that pretty much everyone I know has taken, and the one that your mom was probably skeptical of when you were in high school, and that is just straight up whey protein. Now, some people don't even consider whey protein to be a supplement because it essentially is just food. It comes from dairy, and it's just a great concentrated source of protein that's cheap. It can be tasty, and it can get to your bloodstream and muscles quickly to do what it's intended to do, which is help you repair and build muscle. So why should you take whey protein? I take whey protein. I usually take 2 scoops a day and a protein bar, so quite a bit of it, to be honest. And I take it because it's super cheap, like I said. And when you're doing resistance training, your body does have increased demands of protein. So this is a slide from the PowerPoint, and that says protein supplementation. So the needs for sedentary people are 0.8 kilograms per day. What is up, everybody? Just editing this podcast, and I realized I made a big mistake there. You actually need 0.8 grams per kilogram of body mass, not 0.8 kilograms per day. So I want to run that math for you really quick. So if you're sedentary, and let's say I weigh about 100 kilograms, so we'll multiply that times 2.2, 220 pounds times 0.8. So if I were completely sedentary, I would need about 175 grams of protein a day. That's still quite a lot if you think about it, A 4-ounce chicken breast has 30-ish grams of protein. So you're talking about quite a bit of chicken breast or beef or eggs to get you to that 175. And that's just if you're sedentary. For endurance athletes, it's recommended 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilogram, and then strength and power athletes is 1.8 to 2.2 grams per kilogram a day. So the 2.2 grams per kilogram, I will say that is right on par with that classic bodybuilding. You should get a gram per pound, which I personally adhere to. I'm very close to about 215 grams of protein a day. And I really do feel like it's beneficial for my recovery, for muscle growth. There's been, in the literature, some back and forth between, do you actually need that much protein? And I will say, I think that it can't hurt because there's been multiple studies completed. I don't have a citation list. I've read the studies and I've listened to videos of people referencing these. You can do a simple Google if you don't believe me, but to a certain extent, you're not going to harm your kidneys by overdoing it on protein. You can handle a decent amount. You would really have to be taking large amounts of protein. And I feel like your stomach's going to not comply before you get to those amounts of protein. So I feel like the timing of your protein is also super important. So I'll go briefly through what I do with my timing. The biggest thing you hear is that anabolic window after your workout. If you don't get your protein in within 30 minutes, you wasted your time. And I think that is a myth. However, I do think continuously supplying your body with protein that's then broken down into amino acids is very important, just to help that muscle building and repair process right along. And then there's several types of protein, which is great that we have such a wide variety of stuff to choose from. So like I mentioned, first you have your traditional whey, you have egg protein, you have plant protein for those who are vegan and vegetarian, I guess more so vegan. Or if you're lactose intolerant, you can go for a plant-based protein. So there's tons of options. And I will say, if you were to do one supplement, it's tough for me to say this, but I would say protein probably is your best bet. Just because it can help with a lot of different things. As I mentioned, the big components of protein are amino acids. So this transitions perfectly right into my next point. Do you need to supplement branched chain amino acids? So I was one, and I've talked about this before, who I used to spend all my money on supplements. BCAAs was a big staple with that. And I will say, these branched chain amino acids in the powder form, they tasted great. Did they really help much? I don't think so. I won't say it's a bad thing to supplement with BCAAs, but I don't think it's necessary. I personally wouldn't put my money into it, and I haven't for years. But let's talk about it real quick. If you just want something to sip on, or I guess you could make the case if you train fasted, that it could be beneficial to supplement with branched chain amino acids because you don't have those amino acids in your bloodstream. If you did have any bit of protein beforehand, I would say it's not worth your money to buy BCAAs. But if you are dead set on BCAAs, the PowerPoint says the 3 that you need to be on the lookout for in your product is leucine at 6 grams, isoleucine at 3 grams, and valine at 3 grams. So that ratio, which you'll commonly see on supplement labels, that 2 to 1 to 1, leucine to isoleucine to valine, that's what you want to be on the lookout for. And, like I said, there is some debate, but I'm not going to personally go out and buy branched chain amino acids. Just not something I want to do. Quick hitter, real quick, one that I've gone back and forth on over the years, fish oil. Now, I don't have anything specifically about fish oil in this podcast. I used to take it. They say it's good for overall health. Getting those omega-3s helps with, your joints, your bones, your skin, your hair. I do feel like it's important to get those, but once again, you can get omega-3s from other sources. There's nothing magical about fish oil. It's a cheap form. It's not a bad supplement to take if for some reason you think it would benefit you. But beware of the fish burps, because I would take those in high school because my mom had them. They were free. And I would be burping up like a fishy taste throughout my school day. It was weird. But I will say the next supplement that we'll talk about, I would 100% recommend, guys, please, if you're resistance training, if you're not resistance training, if you're elderly, if you're just getting started, take this. It gets some bad reps, but it's a great supplement, and that is creatine. So straight off the slide here, creatine is a non-essential, naturally occurring, organic, nitrogen-containing compound made in the body from amino acids, but also obtained in the diet. It's not a vitamin or mineral. It's not a steroid. It's not an amino acid, peptide, or protein. Creatine is involved in one simple chemical reaction and functions to replenish ATP during periods of rapid energy turnover. So to get into the science, the physiology real quick, your body uses 3 energy systems. And the one that's, most explosive, if you're doing sprints, any high intensity type workout, squats, deadlifts, is your ATP PC phosphocreatine system. So that one gets depleted super quickly, and then it relies on the creatine within your body to replenish it. So supplementing with creatine is going to help you have greater ATP recovery, which then you can utilize towards force production, which down a long chain of stuff that we won't talk about can help with improving your performance, getting, higher quality reps, building more muscle because you can do those reps. So it's definitely one of the best, most well-researched supplements to take. So you can make some creatine in your body. Your body makes, I would say, around 1 gram a day. And if you eat a ton, and I mean a ton of red meat, more red meat than you should, you probably don't need to supplement. But like I said, you probably shouldn't be eating that much red meat, and it's good to actually supplement with creatine. So it's available to help your body replenish that ATP, help your muscle replenish the ATP. So let's talk a little bit about how much you need and some dosing strategies, timing, and cycling off of creatine as well. If you hear my dog barking in the background, I'm so sorry. He always barks. He's just a great watchdog like that. So creatine dosing strategies. The one thing people always ask me is, do you need to load creatine? And I will say you don't have to load creatine, but it can't hurt to load creatine. And I'll tell you why. So it can't hurt because there are simply no harmful effects that can happen to your body. And that's been validated. But it also can't hurt because creatine is dirt cheap. I will say the source of your creatine does matter. So I work with a company called CREAPure, or I guess in the past I've worked with them. I don't currently work with them. But I believe CREAPure is the best creatine supplement, and they're based out of Germany. So basically every other supplement that has creatine in it that doesn't have the CREAPure logo, they do get their creatine from countries like China. And the difference is Germany has much stricter manufacturing regulations. So they follow something similar to like good manufacturing processes, which means you're getting the highest quality stuff. And if you're going to be putting it in your body every day, I really do think it's a good idea to spend the extra $3 to get a better product. And you can even tell by the consistency of the creatine, of CREAPure versus non-CREAPure, that it's good stuff. So I've had very good experiences with that company. I think they do a great job, and they're very meticulous about making sure they put out the best product. Now, they don't actually sell a product to the consumer. They actually just give creatine to supplement manufacturers. The smallest amount you can buy is like 25 kilograms of creatine, which is a ton. So make sure when you do buy a creatine supplement that it has the CREAPure logo on it, on the container somewhere. Also, quick pet peeve. You'll see drinks like Bang Energy say that they have creatine in them, but creatine actually is unstable in liquid over long periods of time. So it's just dissolved into a waste product. And it's like, I mean, it might be in there, but it's in such trace amounts that it's false advertising. So that's just something that's always been a pet peeve. Let's get back to those dosing strategies because I went off on a big tangent there. So, we were talking about loading. Is it necessary to load? No, but I feel like you can saturate your muscles with creatine if you're loading. And, it's a fraction of cost. So why not, It could take you up to like a month to fully saturate your cells, your muscle cells with creatine if you're taking that maintenance dose of 3 to 5 grams a day. But if you take 20 grams a day, you could be well on your way in seeing actual performance benefits within a week. So just something to keep in mind there. I feel like it can't hurt, so you might as well load creatine. The next supplement we're going to talk about is beta-alanine. So a lot of people have mixed feelings about beta-alanine, mostly because it's in their pre-workouts. Do you actually need it? What does it do? Let's get into it. So beta-alanine, in truth, is just a precursor to carnosine. And the reason why everyone uses beta-alanine instead of carnosine is because carnosine isn't as readily kind of absorbed in your body. So they do actually have to use beta-alanine because it's a precursor. It turns into carnosine, does the exact same thing. So I have a really nice chart here that I'm going to throw up in the video version of this. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're getting some benefits. So basically, you take beta-alanine, which is then transferred to carnosine, but as you're working out, let's say you're doing bicep curls, you're building up hydrogen ions, which actually, if you look into glycolysis, pyruvate is broken up into lactate and hydrogen. Lactate then goes to lactic acid, but the hydrogen is what's causing the burn in your muscles. It's not lactic acid. Lactic acid gets a ton of bad rap, but as, let's say you're doing these bicep curls, you are building up these hydrogen ions. So hydrogen ions, I should say, are acidic, and they're decreasing your pH, which is what causes that burning sensation, because the whole neutrality of your body is being turned up more acid. I kind of just butchered that, sorry. But your body's becoming more acidic, and that causes your performance to decrease. You feel that fatigue. However, carnosine will buffer those hydrogen ions, so basically they can't have as much of a burning effect. Your pH levels will stabilize and your performance increases because you've delayed your fatigue. So the thing about supplementing beta-alanine through a pre-workout only is that, like creatine, it doesn't necessarily saturate your cells because you're probably not taking your pre-workout every day. So let's say you work 4 days a week, you're not going to be able to keep your cells saturated to see the benefits of beta-alanine. And I will say it's important to buy some of these supplements separately. You can just, go online and buy them separately. It's okay to have them in your pre-workout. You could use that as your daily dose. But it's also important to have these supplements on deck on your non-training days too. So the big claim to fame with beta-alanine is that you have those tingles. The paresthesia is the fancy term for it. A lot of people don't like that. I personally kind of like it because it feels like I've come alive again. I don't really feel it as much as I used to. I'll never forget the first time I took C4. You get blasted by that paresthesia. And anyone who remembers the first time they took pre probably can relate there. But if you don't like that tingling feeling, but you still want to get the benefits of beta-alanine, you can just break up the dose, which ideally is 4 to 6 grams per day, into several smaller doses. So if you're not a big fan of it, just break it into smaller doses. I will say there's also some cool evidence and research coming out. I actually heard a guest speaker talk about the effects of beta-alanine on concussions. And they had found that it helped cognition and people coming back from concussions in the military, which was pretty cool. So 2 points that I'd like to read off the slides. Daily supplementation for at least 2 to 4 weeks can improve exercise performance, primarily events lasting 1 to 4 minutes. You will see mostly benefits in those longer duration. Maybe you're doing your hypertrophy work of 20-ish reps. So maybe not the most practical thing, but I feel like over a long workout, this could possibly help your performance. And once again, it's super cheap, so you might as well. However, the last point on this slide does say, more research is needed to determine the effects of beta-alanine on strength, endurance performance beyond 25 minutes in duration, and other health-related benefits associated with carnosine. So there's still some work to be done. Keep in mind this presentation was put together toward mid-2019, and we're in 2021 now. A lot can happen. So keep an eye out for any future research. And I would say, if you want to play it on the safe side, go ahead and get some beta-alanine. Let's talk about the world's favorite drug, caffeine. Now, I've talked a lot about caffeine through Instagram. I've done several posts about it. And it is definitely, like I said, the world's most used drug. And I will say for good reason too, because it has some great mental and ergogenic benefits for your work, for your workouts. So let's get into it. Caffeine. Now, in one of my Instagram posts, so I'm deviating from this presentation a little bit, I talked about the different types of caffeine. So the most common one that you're used to in your pre-workouts, in your soft drinks, is caffeine anhydrous. So it takes the form of a white powder, if you've ever seen it in pill form or powder form. And caffeine anhydrous will actually peak in blood levels 60 to 120 minutes after ingestion. So that's why they always say take this a little bit before your workout, which, a lot of people start sipping their pre when they get to the gym, and you're probably feeling it toward the end of your workout, if not at the end. So definitely, if you're looking for that energy boost from caffeine, start drinking it before your workout. The other thing you have to consider with timing is that caffeine does have a pretty long half-life. I want to say it's something like 5 hours. I might be wrong there. But let's say you take 300 milligrams of caffeine before your workout at 5:30. That means you're still going to have 150 milligrams in your bloodstream at 10 when you're trying to go to bed. So be very strategic with your timing, or it could disrupt your sleep. However, let's talk about a different form of caffeine. So we have dicaffeine malate, and this one's pretty cool because it combines malic acid and caffeine, which has been shown to reduce the crash that some people feel from caffeine. And it can also have different timing effects. So maybe this one hits sooner than your caffeine anhydrous, and you get like a good mix of sustained energy throughout your workout. If you are looking for a pre-workout that does that, just make sure it has caffeine from several different sources. But to get into a little bit more about dosing and some of the other effects of caffeine, the dose for caffeine is actually pretty high. I was surprised when I heard this for the first time, and it is 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram. So if you take my example, which was 100 kilograms of body weight, I would need 3 to 600 milligrams of caffeine. That's quite a bit, I feel kind of like weird about having a Bang Energy too much or a Reign too much, because that's a lot of caffeine. Of course, everyone's sensitivity is different, and you will develop tolerance. So be smart with your caffeine dosing. I would say, if you're having consistently 600 milligrams at one time, there could be some issues, that could arise from that. So just be conscientious about your dosing. And actually, there's certain doses that are banned in college sports. So if you have 10 milligrams per kilogram, which you're like cracked at that point, that would be 1,000 milligrams before a game for me. Oh, I don't know if I would do that. But I mean, that is banned, because probably just due to health for those athletes. So other effects of caffeine, other than just, delayed fatigue, increased alertness, is that it also does help with fat oxidation. So if you do see products such as fat burners, you're also going to see that they're pretty high in caffeine, and be conscientious of that as you're planning your dosing. In the past, when I've taken fat burners, I just felt way too wired throughout the day. I mean, I don't know. They do work okay. It's not something that I recommend and it's not something that I would take myself. Another thing to be aware about is you commonly do hear that caffeine dehydrates you, and they actually haven't validated that in studies. So I think, to my knowledge, that is a myth. Let's talk about some common beverages just so you can get an idea of how much caffeine is in something. So we already talked about those high stim pre-workouts like Rain, Bang, but like a common cup of brewed coffee has 100 milligrams. A Red Bull has 80, which I feel like Red Bulls just have more sugar than caffeine almost, which is wild. Let's see, green tea has 20 milligrams, so just a tiny bit there. And a shot of espresso has about 30, just so you can keep an idea of the amount of caffeine you're consuming. We've talked about some of the biggest and most popular, the stuff that I would recommend supplements out there. I feel like there are a couple other supplements and then ingredients within those supplements that you should be aware of. So let's say you have adverse reactions to caffeine. You're just not big on stims. There are still options for you out there. So the first one being L-citrulline. So L-citrulline is big in non-stim pre-workouts because it helps nitric oxide production, and that will dilate your blood vessels, can't talk, and that's going to help you get a pump. But the pump, it's nice, it looks good. There's some physiological benefits as well. So one, you're going to be able to clear metabolites and waste products from your workout, and you're also going to be able to replenish your muscles with the necessary nutrients and oxygen to work effectively. So if you're looking for a pre-workout or a non-stim pre-workout that has L-citrulline, look for a dose of 6 to 8 grams. And that's going to be ideal. Honestly, 8 is ideal. Not a lot of people dose their pre-workout at 8 though. The kind of unfortunate paradox is caffeine is actually a vasoconstrictor, and that is how it has the mechanism of increasing your blood pressure because your blood vessels are tightened, and essentially your heart has to work harder to pump blood through them. Vasodilators do the exact opposite. So it's actually kind of a good thing if you think about it. Now, there's some other ingredients that I feel like are kind of slept on with pre-workouts, so let's talk about them. One pre-workout supplement that I particularly enjoy is Granite pre-workout. It's from John Meadows, who has been known as a very credible guy in the industry. So that one has a couple of ingredients that I feel like you should be on the lookout for in your pre-workout. The first one is alpha GPC, or alpha glycerol phosphorylcholine, and essentially that just helps to increase acetylcholine, which can help improve cognition. So what I notice when I take this pre-workout is I actually feel like I just have a lot of focus, and I feel like I'm in a good mood. And there's some other things that contribute to that as well, which another one is theacrine, which commonly takes form as teacrine. And that one is good because it's more of a energy booster. It's found naturally in tea and coffee, but it's not as much of a stimulant as pure caffeine. So it still can reduce your it can still reduce your fatigue and boost your energy, but it doesn't have the boost on blood pressure and other effects like that. So it's a good alternative for those of you who are super caffeine sensitive. The last thing I'd like to close this discussion on is a little bit of talk about nootropics. So I'm not even going to act like nootropics are a new or like a recently discovered thing, but I feel like they are beginning to be utilized in supplements more and more. So one that I've taken, and this is the only one I'm going to talk about because I don't really want to talk about and recommend things that I've never tried, is the lion's mane mushroom. So a lot of nootropics actually are in the form of mushrooms and other, naturally kind of like stuff that I used to think of like Chinese herbal medicine. I used to think it was all crap. But like lion's mane is a mushroom, and it does make a very big difference in your mood, For the workout, like I said, I just felt like a laser focus. I felt like I was in a better mood. But like some people will take it if they're studying or they have to grind something for work. And what it can do is just it helps you with focus, and it can also help you, in social situations where it's been shown to decrease kind of feelings of uneasiness or stress. So the mechanism behind that also has some very cool evidence of helping with protecting your nerves. And there is currently research in the works of seeing its effects on Alzheimer's, dementia, and other cool things like that. So not something that I know a ton about. I definitely want to learn more about nootropics and start experimenting with them a little bit more, but you hear great things. Guys, I will say, if you're super interested in learning more about supplements, a podcast called The Supplement Engineer is going to be a much better and, factual representation of this information as well. So check out the Supplement Engineer podcast. He is a very smart guy himself, and he has well-known individuals from supplement companies, researchers, to a broad mix of stuff like that to interview on his podcast. So definitely check that one out. If you have any other supplement questions, or if you feel like you might have some concerns with any of the things that I said, feel free to shoot me a message, or if you're on YouTube, drop them in the comments below. If you have any questions about these things either, I have done a lot of research myself. Wouldn't say I'm necessarily the best source, but I'm always here and always willing to help. So hit me up if you have any questions. But guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. It's been really fun to put more time into the podcast, into these YouTube videos. So if you wouldn't mind, if you're on YouTube, drop a comment, talk to me about what supplements you're using, and make sure to give this video a like. Hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. Hey, if you want to keep real close tabs on me, hit that notification bell. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, I'd really appreciate if you shared the podcast around with your friends, maybe even left me a positive review. It all helps out, guys. Once again, thank you all so much. I appreciate you all. I'll catch you in the next one.